A very good morning to you, our viewers. When you see these smiles, definitely you know it's a Wednesday, and we are back on your screens with Patrick on the other chair. My name is Sharon Kalim. My other name, my name is Miss Kalimbula. I think that is the other name that I'm supposed to be talking about.
Someone rushes to talk about my name and they forget their name. Hey.
This is something else. It goes down in history, Patrick. I think this is how much I miss being on the screens.
I can tell. But you are being just economic of your words. This is how much you miss Patrick.
No,
but it's fine.
Yeah, well, in case you're just joining us, you haven't missed a thing. Thank you so much for choosing us. We are here yet again with another exciting show lined up for you. We are talking various issues affecting this country. As usual, Wednesday and Thursday is policy and politics. Of course, we have the health corner and the money markets later on the show, just seeing how our kwacha is faring against other major convertibles. Patrick?
Interesting. Like Shalon indicated, we have a fully packed program, and just now we'll go into our first one, being the health corner, so that we get advice from the doctors. Stay tuned.
Good morning. My name is Francisca Walia. I'm a medical doctor by profession, and I've specialized in psychiatry, a mental health field in medicine. And today I'm representing the Medical Women Association of Zambia as we create awareness around mental health. During this week, we've been speaking about mental health in general, what mental health is, how mental health can present itself, and we went a step further and spoke about depression and suicide. Today, to wrap it up, we're going to speak on an area that greatly affects mental health in various aspects, actually. It affects people's mental well-being in general. It affects people's health-seeking tendency for mental health presentations and conditions. And it also affects how people with mental health conditions are perceived by people around, and the attitude and various challenges that they experience. And this is stigma around people presenting with mental health. And this stigma sometimes is not only just from the community, but even towards oneself. Very common in my practice, I've found that people presenting with different mental health conditions or issues will actually be stigmatizing themselves. So imagine, first at individual level, a lot of people stigmatize themselves for having a mental health condition or presenting with a mental health issue. Then further, imagine now the person who has a mental health issue, and now the attitude of the people around these individuals. What's our attitude towards people who have mental health issues? Are we helpful? Are we supportive? Are we empathetic? Are we compassionate towards them? When one presents with a mental health issue, they already are experiencing a certain level of stress. Then unfortunately, they have to receive that stress from the people around them as well. And we have noticed that in the practice that it has affected a lot of individuals to be able to seek the medical or professional attention that they need at that particular time. And where is this stigma mostly coming from? This stigma is coming about because people lack understanding of what mental health is. And that's why we're trying to normalize talk around mental health, so that most of us can appreciate what is mental health, what causes it, how does it present itself, and also understanding that it can actually affect anyone, even you at this particular point who feels very happy and stable at the moment. It can affect anyone. Having that understanding can be also very helpful. It's because we don't understand what mental health is that we see people stigmatizing. Because when one understands that, okay, mental health in general affects these various areas of our lives, and it's a major component of one's health and well-being, I believe a lot of us, our perception and our attitude will change towards people presenting with mental health conditions. And having a mental health issue or condition at a particular point in life is not a death sentence. A lot of people successfully come out of their different mental health struggles and are very productive and apply themselves well. Others just after different type of talk therapies, which we call psychotherapies, and others there'll be aspects of behavioral therapy or modification, and in other incidents with medication. And we see thousands and thousands of people living well productive life on medication. Let us change the narrative around mental health. And a lot of times the common question I get, are there mental health services in Zambia? Yes, there are mental health services in Zambia. Several. I'll just refrain from mentioning facilities so that I'm not accused of advertising for them. In the public, both in the public sector and in the private sector. Actually, what we've seen is are people requesting for those services? Are people actually opening up and coming out to ask for help? Most of our facilities, health facilities, both public and private, actually have these services. And when you request for it, you get the reference that you need, or you get the appointment that you need to assist you. And as MWAS, which is Medical Women Association of Zambia, this week we decided to shed more light on mental health, to create awareness on mental health, because we believe that this is the first step in this long journey of normalizing talk and health-seeking tendencies around mental health. Thank you for following. Be that change in the community. Be that loving person. Be that neighbor to anyone around you. Thank you.
There you have it. The doctors, as usual, never disappoint to give us various pertinent issues pertaining to health. The medical
Women Association of Zambia, indeed, we're on board as usual, and we always want to remind you, our viewers, that this is your show and these are your segments, and therefore if you feel there's a topic that you want the doctors to come and address, at least briefly, because these are just brief notes or highlights that they give on these types of illnesses. And today they were talking about mental related issues and stigma in particular. Those people that are diagnosed with mental related issues, Patrick, they could be temporal, and others could be permanent, could be disorders that would need you to take long-term medication for life, for you to remain in that same box, you know, of acceptable standards according to society. But others, it may just be temporal. For example, you have an accident and then you're shocked, you know, and is it traumatic disorder and stuff? Those are mental related issues. And some people would actually say, we know China. Actually, we've actually advanced. We no longer finish it to say Chinama, because that's a mental hospital that we have in this country, the major one. So we just say, we know China. Be careful.
So sometimes you may think Sharon had traveled abroad.
Exactly.
When you are saying she went to China.
She went to China, you know.
But people would be discriminatingly, indirectly telling us to say, Sharon is actually China market. She had an issue.
Exactly.
So, but talking about that, Sharon, it reminds me of the story that we had in the news pertaining to that man in the Sakas Kanyama compound, who is at the verge of insanity,
losing it,
owing to drug abuse and substance abuse. And that story, Sharon, I was pointing to everything to what is happening in various localities. I would relate because I see it in where I come from. I do not stay in these fancy areas where you people come from. The Kablangas, the Ibex, whatever. But where I come from, where there are many people, Sharon, you attest to what that man was going through because of substance abuse is going insane, and you'd see disjointed speech, the way he reasons, and you know, but at it whole, Sharon, is the fact that he's troubling the mother.
The mother,
and you know, you see how women struggle in these compounds. If you listen to that story, many parents would relate because their children have gone in such a facing similar challenges, Sharon. And this is something, a time bomb we are sitting on. I saw another member of parliament, should be from the Copper Belt, should be Benwa Mpundu. Yeah, he was also talking about the issues pertaining to street kids, that it's a time bomb. And I agree with him, because if you looked at what he was prevailing, Sharon, it is indeed a time bomb, because mental issues are real. So those 3 children, what is the long-term consequences, that they become victims of that because of substance abuse, the trauma they go through to survive the day, because to survive in the street you also need to behave strangely, do strange things, like you need to involve yourself in crime, you need to do all sort of things, but sometimes it just pushes them to the limit, and now they lose it. And we would find ourselves as a country responding to crime issues as opposed to taking a proactive approach and mitigating some of these issues that are being caused by alcohol abuse, substance abuse. If we are proactively preventing this, we may reduce on spending on our health sector, because what we are going to be facing is that our health system will be extremely choked. And Sharon, you and I know very well that our health sector is not funded as expected.
Indeed, Patrick.
So you discover that the money that is supposed to respond to these challenges is limited.
It's limited.
And we now become overwhelmed, and we may be faced with a situation where people are just dying as they go to these health centers. We need to just be proactive as a country and address issues pertaining to mental illness.
Yes, indeed. Mental health is a neglected sector of health that we barely talk about, because really we just feel when there are different forms, actually, like I mentioned earlier. Others are temporary, others are long-term, others are permanent. But then there's always medication. These are human beings that are supposed to be treated equally in society, but then there's a lot of stigma that is attached. I think way back, even now, it's better that we, even the media, they're talking about these things. But way back, you know, even drivers in the bus stations would actually say, you know, that is some form of discrimination, simply because one has passed through that process, which most of us have, but probably we haven't just sought help, you know, because we all go through some certain form of disturbance, some of just pressure that will just put you at the brink of, you know,
and now that
breakdown.
you mention it, Sharon, politicians are also fond of that tendency. They would say, this government is mad. Or they would describe another politician to say, this one is mad. It's a mental case. It needs to be checked and everything. No. Whether they may be having that condition, it is not you to determine.
It's not you to determine.
You are trying to point out that they may be having a mental issue because you want to imbalance them. You're not doing it for their best interest. You want people to think that to have a certain perception about that someone. So that's a tendency politicians also get involved in, usually tempted to pursue. But Sharon and I are saying, let's stop it.
Let's stop the stigma towards mental related issues. Each one of us is bound to experience that in either a huge way, a bigger way, or just a minimal way, which is temporary. For now, though, let's look at how the money markets are faring this morning. Let's see if we can change it. Those our dollars, which Prudence clearly told me, Patrick, that she changed her dollars. She no longer has them. I think.
But I think she made a loss.
She was so broke. She had no choice.
Yeah, because the United, is doing fine.
Exactly. The United States dollars is buying at 16 kwacha 32 ngwe and selling at 16 kwacha 64 ngwe. The Great British Pound is at 19 kwacha 61 ngwe and selling at 19 kwacha 99 ngwe. The Euro is at 16 kwacha 72 ngwe and selling at 17 kwacha 04 ngwe, while the South African Rand has remained constant on 0.96, selling at 0.98, and this simply means our kwacha is
exactly
right,
doing fine. Our currency there, we just hope that it will continue within the same range. That has always been my prayer, because I don't want a mad currency.
Yeah, are you being are you stigmatizing our currency by saying you don't want a mad currency?
For the currency, yes, I am.
You're stigmatizing the currency.
I am.
But anyways, in case you are just joining us, this is The Breakfast Show. My name is Sharon Kalimbola, and this morning we are talking the plight of teachers. So this is what we are talking about, obviously, this week. Last week, the Minister of Education announced the results, the recruitment process. The famous 30,496 teachers were recruited, and this is what we've been talking about for a couple of days. A number of issues have come up, Patrick, from that recruitment. While it was stated earlier that government is recruiting 30,000 teachers, it was discovered that they recruited 30,496, which is close to 500 more. A plus on our part. We talked about it, and other things are emerging, such as duplication of names. Patrick, it was also discovered that most people, some of the people were appearing 7 times on that 666 paged paper. It was a very thick paper, Patrick.
It was.
It was a very, very thick paper that it would take you to actually sit calmly to find your name, because I wouldn't. I think I would take 3-4 days to find my name. With my 4 eyes. I don't know. I kept on looking, perusing, trying to see if I could find somebody I knew, but it was just, for me, too much. The names were too much. I couldn't find anything. However,
but there were also the lucky ones who had
spotted their names immediately. Immediately they would just spot their name, their NRC and stuff. But then again, we told that there are probably names that were duplicated, amounting to over 1,000. This somehow has got, 3-4 sides of the story, because why would the system duplicate names? How credible is our system that it wouldn't pick this NRC has already been entered? We enter another NRC. Secondly, it presents an opportunity for those teachers that we are left once they re-advertise, probably for these places that were duplicated. So please look out.
It also provides room for us to speculate that our Department of National Registration is not doing its job adequately.
It's not. I always say that it's not.
It may mean that some people are using the same NRC. And why is that? We need answers. So it also points out to the issues that have emerged in the past, that probably there will also been giving NRCs to foreigners. All those things. You would find that if the system cannot detect the duplication, then it defeats the purpose of an ICT system.
Exactly.
Because what I understand is that electronic systems have to always detect. And the name, I don't know, the names, I haven't really checked on how the chronological order they were put, or
were they even in chronological order? Because what I saw, Patrick, the names were not.
They were jumbled.
They were jumbled. They were all over the place.
Yeah. So I think normally, as per system,
they're supposed to be in chronological order, in alphabetical order.
So you don't have to struggle like with your 4 eyes, so that you go to just the S.
Kalimbola is the case.
The case. So you go and deal with the case. The S.
I forget about the rest. But this time around, the names were all over the place. And it took somebody with a lot of patience. And you can imagine, you've been waiting for 9 years. And then I think it's nothing done. The anxiety that would just cripple me. It would just, people were checking, and when they find their names, some were really excited, some were really crying, tears of joy, because it took a very long time for them to be put on the government payroll. But for me, really, there's a lot that actually came out of the whole process. I think
another suggestion that needs to be worked on, others have also suggested, Sharon, I don't know if that can work, for instance, the teaching fraternity. Probably we reduce on the number of schools that provide these courses.
Teacher training.
Yes. Then we also focus on other areas like entrepreneurship, because as a country we're also looking at increasing productivity in the industries. So we look at other cases that can help us steer industrialization, that courses that are needed. And then you reduce on producing more teachers, because if you look at the backlog, we recruited let's say 30,496 now, and we had over 100, Sharon. It means about
90 something.
60,
90.
Yes, 90,000.
Because there were about 130 something.
So now 90,000. Where are those 90,000? It means they remain in the streets.
They remain in the streets.
So now what happens? What happens of the 90,000? If we are offloading another this year, we are offloading another 2,000. It will be 12,000. Next year we'll be offloading another.
By the time
you see,
the 30,000 is exhausted and it will no longer make sense.
So some courses, I think my suggestion is that you need to limit. We understand. So, but it's like each and every, it's an easy course to provide, and you know that government employees at once, so I'd rather be a teacher because government will take 30 at once. But no, we can also look elsewhere. But I understand that the problem also that we have as a country is career guidance. We go to school sometimes without knowing what we want to become. And usually you are at school, you are learning almost everything. And when you are done with school, you would think to say, which course, when I do my course, am I going to find a job? Because we are programmed for employment. So you would find that my first my thinking will always be to say, once I'm done, I'd rather be a teacher. Instantly, I'll be employed. I may be among the 20,000 the UPND administration will be recruiting. But that's a wrong notion, because at the end of the day, the government cannot employ everyone at once. We are also looking at constraints we have as a country. Remember, we have debt obligations that we need to satisfy. We have the economy to fix as a country. So at the end of the day, the government cannot continuously spend on recruiting teachers, because it becomes an attainable
the teaching
venture.
And the medical fraternity.
So you too, as our dear viewers, can share your perspective, because these are some of the things that people who've been interviewing have been suggesting, Sharon, to say, okay, what about if we go A, B, C, D, we go this route? But you know, an opinion is just an opinion.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, we're also looking for your opinion on how we can find a lasting solution. And the ICT system that we have, let's look at how can we improve it.
If there's a department that the Ministry of Science and Technology was supposed to start working on immediately that ministry was established, was the BOMAPAT, National Registration Department.
Yes.
It's a mess.
It is a mess. It is
Patrick.
A mess. It is.
You go and look for your NRC. If you honestly don't remember the year, if you don't remember the year, a month that you collected your NRC,
you are gone.
You're doomed. You know, manual. I don't remember, because I mean nowadays life is made easy. You just enter your NRC, blah, 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 blah. The information is out there, and your picture and everything. They have it printed out, but you have to go through the same process that you went through when getting your first NRC. Probably, if you're unlucky, you even spend 2 days going there. You know, that is how bad the situation. That's why a marriage to the tuishi. Because you don't want to undergo the same process.
But I'm happy that earlier this year I was talking with Minister of Science and Technology, Felix.
They want to
Mutati.
digitalize?
They are working on a biometric arrangement.
But
where
even that thing was talked about even under the Patriotic Fund administration.
So it had gone down, but now there has been a private-public partnership where everything will be put in order. This system will just allow you, Sharon, to connect your ATM, to connect your NRC, to connect your passport, to connect everything to your card. So when, for example, Sharon, you want to access a service, to say you want to register, you go to open an account for a bank, you just place your fingerprint in, which brings the details, Sharon Karimbula, everything. But again, so all those things, even those who are afraid of paying taxes, it will be easy to detect Elijah Chifita, tax avoider. Then you look at that thing, go say, okay, what taxes do they pay? What taxes do they pay? your DSTV stuff, everything, your pay TV, everything will be there. So I also saw a sample of how it looks like and everything. I just blame myself for not actually doing justice to that story because I'd buried it. But now that you talk about it, I'm going to resurrect it because people need to have information.
Resurrect it. We need to remind the duty bearers of the promises that they
Mm-hmm.
make so that they can start working on those things. Yeah, especially Mr. Mtati has been doing a lot of things, and we need to keep track of how far he's responding to these promises that is made to the Zambian people. He's moved up and down the country and outside the country in search of technology, and we need to start seeing these things starting to work in our favor. However, you, the viewers, can call us and send us those text messages. We are talking about the plight of teachers in our country and private schools. Patrick, one of the schools, I was talking to a colleague, the honors school, I think about 5 teachers have actually been recruited in this same recruitment, so that cripples the school somehow. But this also gives advantage. You know, what proverb is that? Today I'm for proverbs. No, not that.
Not going to be shocked.
Patrick, be serious.
How does that proverb fitting now?
No, I was going to say that. I was going to say, that one, mwai wa galo ni chani.
Sunga gonere.
No, not that one. It's like you drop a food, then somebody else picks. Like, you know that proverb, Patrick, you've used it before. For example, I'm eating a beef. I love beef. Camnet, so kanyama. Like, I drop it, then a dog picks it.
They say chakang, but I'm not aware of that. They say chakanga bagankuku singa meri. That's another one I know.
No, I'll tell you when I remember. I'll tell you when I remember.
Your proverb. Since you said you're in the proverb.
No. I'll tell you when I remember it. But what I'm trying to say here is, while these other people are leaving these private schools, they're celebrating, it creates an opportunity for new people to be recruited in those private schools. So we should take advantage of the cycle. Let's not cry foul to say, no, we've been left behind, we haven't been recruited, like the story that Zipporah did for this teacher in Western Province, who has been volunteering for about 10 years now and actually contributed to the construction of teachers' houses in that public school. And he was complaining, he came here all the way to Lusaka to be addressed by the Ministry of Education,
you know,
complaining, so why have I been left out, questioning government's criteria.
But you know what, again, I can respond to that man, why he's left out. It's because the process was blind, Sharon.
Yeah.
If the process was saying, okay, volunteer, and everything, it was going to be easy. But the system, the way it was done, it was blind. It is not taking into account. When we were applying, it did not take into account what you have done. You understand, eh? What you are doing at the moment. So, but you know, wamagamba futi mwai wa mzako sunga ugonere pa bwalo.
So kayampo ni mwai wa galo. So exactly, I remember now. Yes.
So okay. So okay, yeah. Now you see now.
It makes sense, huh?
It does. It does. So me, I'm going with my Wamza Sunga Gonere Pabwa. It's a thing where you, Sharon, and I apply, and you are selected.
And then you said,
that's what they feel your possession.
And I will help you.
But why Sharon? Why Sharon? Because Sharon, no.
We applied together.
Yeah, we applied together, and there's no way you can just pick for her. Sharon is a girl. Why didn't you pick me, a man?
Boy, Patrick. You called me a girl.
You are a boy.
But you called me a girl, so
okay, yes, they were boy. You now understand, Sharon, eh? So, it's a real proverb that makes sense at this time around, because you know, not all days are Sundays. So sometimes you just have to accept the situation as it is.
Exactly,
and,
Patrick.
move on. Let me just read this story. The National Union of Public and Private Educators of Zambia Executive President Victor Muyumba is calling on government to ensure that issues of upgrades and confirmation of teachers are resolved urgently. He says it is painful for teachers already serving that the newly deployed teachers have higher salaries than the serving despite having similar qualifications. Mr. Muyumbwa was speaking at a press briefing in Lusaka Tuesday. He says they are confident that they will combat teacher shortages, especially in rural areas, and also reduce pupil-teacher ratio in schools. Mr. Muyumba, meanwhile, commended the government for honoring its promise of recruiting teachers, which he says presents hope for the teaching fraternity. Indeed,
Patrick, that is the story that we covered yesterday. Mr. Muyumba, the National Union of Public and Private Educators of Zambia, Executive President, who was addressing a number of issues on this. He's the one who also brought out the issue of looking at opportunities that have been created in these private schools. I think, you know, the idea of waiting for government to employ you is far-fetched, and it may not come anytime soon. So you need to pick up from where you are, from where you left off, from anywhere, and look at better private schools that are offering better than probably where you've been, because most of the complaints that we received from these teachers is that in private schools they've been getting paid probably 1,500 kwacha. But if there's a private school that is paying you 3,000 kwacha or 4,000 kwacha, that's better. You need to move. So it's all about being optimistic, being realistic. Sit down and think about how you're going to survive in this in these harsh realities. However, let's look at that story when we continue. When we come back, we continue the conversation.
And profusely so, the UPND government for this unprecedented recruitment of teachers. We are talking about 30,400 plus teachers that have been recruited. Because we've been making this demand for quite some time, so it has turned now into a request. We have teachers already. Even these that have been deployed, the 30,000, have joined those that have been crying, and crying for a number of things. And critical to them right now are issues that border on confirmations and upgrades. Some of these 30,000 that are going to work as teachers were taught by these that are already there, and some of them are going in as degree holders, meaning they will be in higher salary scales than the people that taught them. If not kept, this can be morale dampening and not good for the Ministry of Education.
All right, so that is NUPE's Executive President, Mr. Victor Muyumba. Hopefully, he will be joining us soon on set to discuss a number of issues regarding this teacher recruitment and the way forward for the teachers in this country. Of course, he hinted that he will be talking to private schools. There's an association for private schools and private teachers, really, and he's hoping that he will convince them to reach an amicable salary scale that will be attractive enough for the teachers to not want to cross on the other side. But then again, Patrick, what makes people want to cross over on the other side? Or what? Because really, I've heard most private school teachers who say, in private, you work for your money. What does that mean? In government, you leisure?
Yeah,
you relax?
To a certain extent, I agree. In government, you relax, because I remember when I was in grade 8 up to grade 12, we had spent most of the time just making noise in the classroom. If you're not taking your individual time to study or to just go to those who know how to solve mathematics to go and help you and whatever, you remain behind. Or if you're not investing in your own personal time at when you knock off, because if I recall, we spent most of the time just making noise. Moving up and about the school, because the teachers, they are not there. You say the teacher is not coming, they will leave you an assignment, they move out, So the rest of the time, once you are done with that, writing that assignment or not,
it will be noise.
It will be noise or whatever. So you'd find that, but for private schools, it's results based. So they don't compromise on results, because if the pupils are not performing fine, you need to make sure that each parent is satisfied in terms of how they are performing, because they know that Madam Karimbula will withdraw their child from this school, because they're not seeing the value for money. So that's why you'd find that people would tell you that they work for the money in these private schools. But that's not to say that there are no teachers who put in their best and everything in public schools. There are those teachers,
but most of them, especially these ones, we risk having a lazy cadre of teachers, because ababa ikalishe sana 9 years no ingile nchito. Now when they're employed, they'll say, this is time to feel good, to relax.
Exactly. but another problem that comes in,
through so much.
Another problem that comes in, Sharon, it is the appetite for loans. And just so they would want to say, okay, there are those privileges in government. Those are the privileges they afford, but those privileges have also taken some to the early graves, because of the stress that these loans sometimes come with. So you tend to become to be financing a financial institution, because they know that teachers are easy target.
Exactly. So they were excited. I'm sure they were even looking out.
So those people who were recruited, you can bet me, most of them were saying, "Hey, I'm going to own a house." You get a sense. I'm going to own a vehicle, But those things. Sharon and I, you and I, we have worked on stories here. There's teachers come stressed telling us to say, because of the laws, I'm unable to do these other things.
This and that.
We saw another teacher who wrote a book about the debt burden in the teaching fraternity. We also saw Mr. Aaron Chansa. He's been talking about this issue time without number, without looking at the issue of pertaining to the indebtedness of teachers.
Teachers can be hilarious.
So the indebtedness issue, Sharon, usually comes because of those. But teacher, we also pupils. So but teacher, although I met my teacher,
I saw a story. I think we talked about it the other time, but a story. This teacher from Southern Province, he posted a thing on social media. I think I saw it on social media that teachers feel ashamed if they see it. Pupils feel ashamed if they see their teacher without a car. And I think he had bought this big car. And then I was like, this is peer pressure. It's too much.
Yes, but you understand, right? It is too much, because again,
this peer pressure is too much for the teachers.
It's also about, but someone also told us, Sharon, to say, you shouldn't live for people. But sometimes
society, you focus about, because
they don't appreciate. So you walk, it's an issue.
Patrick, there's a way society.
You drive, you take yourself into a debt burden, all those things, right? But those are the privileges the teachers usually get excited over, that I want to work for the government. But there are also opportunities in the private sector, and it's because of our education system that has told us that we need to get into government and get employed by government for us to live well. But if you are in the private sector,
you can still live
you can
well.
Still make it and achieve your dreams.
In Lusaka, you can still manage to live according to the BNB basket of about 9,000. You can still manage. Actually, one of the most expensive areas to live in. And in this country, Patrick, according to
GCTR. People survive, Sharon. The BNB is at 9,000, someone earns 700, but they do contain it. Let's look at another story, Sharon.
Let's look at one of the stories that has been trending in the courts of law. Government has argued before the Constitutional Court that it is on firm ground to challenge the legality of the immunity agreement that former Konkola Copper Mines Provisional Liquidator Milingo Lungu is alleging to have been granted by the Director of Public Prosecution, Lillian Siyuni. This is in a matter where Mr. Lungu has petitioned the state and its agents and the Constitutional Court over the rearrest on the allegations that he bought a house using illegal gains when they entered into a pact to exempt him from prosecution after he rendered the mining firm's accounts, records, and relinquished his position. However, the lesser submissions by the state seeks that the court declares illegal the purported immunity Mr. Lungu is alleged to have been granted. Let's look at the story, among other stories from the courts. Isaac.
On whether the former Konkola Copper Mines provisional liquidator Milingo Lungu was given immunity continues to be debated upon before the courts of law, with the Attorney General Mulilo Kabesha telling the Constitutional Court in the state's latest submission that contrary to Mr. Milingo Lungu's assertion, the state is capable of bringing a petition or cross-petition before court. This is in a matter where Mr. Lungu has petitioned the state and its agent in the Constitutional Court over his re-arrest on allegation that he bought a house using illegal gains when they entered into a pact to exempt him from prosecution after he rendered the mining firm's account, records, and relinquished his position. However, the state cross-petitioned and demanded that the Constitutional Court declare illegal the purported immunity dated 22nd March 2022 granted to Mr. Lungu, as it is against public interest and an abuse to court process. In their latest submission on why the court should not dismiss their cross-petition, the state argue that despite the Attorney General having a mandate to represent the Director of Public Prosecution in all proceedings in any relief sought, such representation ought to be for an act and omission within the confines of the Constitution, further submitting that Mr. Lungu's application to dismiss their cross-petition be dismissed with cost. In this case, Mr. Lungu claimed to have negotiated for his freedom with President Hakainde Hichilema's principal private secretary, legal advisor, the Attorney General, Solicitor General, the Administrator General, and the Director of Public Prosecution, and he said his rearrest had no legal effect owing to the discontinuance of his criminal proceedings by the latter, arguing that the Drug Enforcement Commission's decision to rearrest him for possessing property suspected to be proceeds of crime was in breach of the agreement he signed with the state's agent, as it was unreasonable and an abuse of criminal proceedings to seize his property, arrest, charge, and prosecute him for his act that KCM had not complained of. However, the state also argues that the document purporting to be an immunity agreement signed between Mr. Lungu and the Director of Public Prosecution is against public interest and an abuse of the court process, and it is illegal and void. The state also argues that the immunity and the discontinuance of the charge of theft of 4.4 million and money laundering deal was exclusively done by the Director of Public Prosecution in the purported exercise of her powers and not as directed by any government official. We wait to see how this case unfolds. Miriam Kaimba reporting for Camnet TV News. Having allegedly shot his fellow police officer earlier this year after a dispute, 27-year-old Pumulo Mulife, a Zambia police officer under paramilitary unit, appeared before the Lusaka High Court Tuesday to stand trial on one count of causing grievous harm. In a fully packed court, 24-year-old Wamunyima Mubiana, a Zambia police officer, testified how his fellow cop pointed an AK-47 rifle to his face, and later he woke up at the University Teaching Hospital with a big wound on his right ear. In his testimony, the state witness informed the court that when he gained conscious, one of his friends who was at the bedside informed him that he had been shot at when he was at a drinking place in Lusaka's North Mid Market. According to Constable Mubiana, the reason he was allegedly shot was because he had refused to buy beer for Constable Pumulo Mulife, who he had just met at the same drinking place in North Mid Market. In this case, Officer Pumulo Mulife is accused of having, on the 26th of February 2022, with intent, caused grievous bodily harm to Mr. Mubiana. The officer has pleaded not guilty to the charge and is appearing before Judge Timothy Katenikwa. Earlier, the witness testified that on the 34th day, he was in the company of his friend, also a police officer, and around 20 to 21 hours, he went to Northmead where he met the accused person. However, whilst they were having a good time, the accused started harassing him and requesting for money, and he later pulled his clothes and started beating him. The witness told the court that the accused got a gun, dropped the safeguard, clocked it, and pointed to his face, and the next thing he woke up, he was at the University Teaching Hospital. Trial continues in this case. Miriam Kaimba reporting for Camnet TV News.
There you have it. Quite interesting stories from the court brought to us by Miriam Kaimba, our court reporter. Now, next week we'll be zooming live so that she can be giving us court updates. So make sure you make a date with us on this platform. And Sharon, interesting stories that it's quite a rare story that he was pointed a gun. When he woke up, he found himself at the
UTH Teaching Hospital.
Then he said, the last thing I saw was someone was pointing me a gun.
So he fainted.
And he woke up. I think that's a good story.
He fainted.
He fainted, Sharon.
Upon seeing the gun.
Because others die in such a circumstance, Sharon. And we thank God that he is
he wasn't shot, right?
He was shot on the ear.
Oh, man. But anyways, that is a story that we continue to follow from the court grounds, brought to us by Miriam Kaimba. For now, let's take a short break so that we can allow our guests to come in. Mr. Victor Muyumba from NUPES, as we discuss issues to do with the plight of teachers in the country.
The Agriculture and Commercial Show is back, bigger and better under the theme Innovation Through Technology. And as Camnet TV, we are here to transform your business through our technology. Advertise with us on discounted rates during the month of July and during the Agriculture and Commercial Show. Special price package for live stunt interviews, on-screen product placement during the coverage of the show. For more details, call the following numbers. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Welcome back. You are still watching the Camnet Breakfast with me, Patrick Soko, and Shalon Karimbola. And we've been joined by our guest on the program. He is coming from the National Union of Public and Private Educators of Zambia, NUPES, and he is the Executive President, Mr. Victor Muyumba. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you so much.
We are happy that you managed to find time to be with us as we take on this conversation pertaining to the plight of teachers. Just to get our discussion going, first of all, we want to get your overall perspective over the recent recruitment of teachers as the union. How do you receive that? Because you are the people who have been reminding government to ensure that it actualizes this commitment which was made during the presentation of the 2022 national budget.
Thank you so much. Actually, we were elated to learn that finally the names are out. Remember, at some point there was a mention that come 1st June, the names would be published. And a day or so before 1st June, there was some change to that effect. And that change did not state as to when the names would be out. So that left some gap, and there was room for speculation. And that's what people started speculating. No, maybe they don't have money. No, maybe they were waiting for the IMF. No, this is not going to work out, and all that. So even as stakeholders, we got concerned because that was too big a pronouncement to simply be brushed off. And we thought government needed to be clear on the same. So it was heartwarming finally to hear that names were going to be published on the 15th of July. And when 15th of July came, even the newspaper that carried the names was released a bit late.
Very late, actually.
Yes, they had a lot of work to do. And that also created the anxiety in its own sense. But thereafter, we saw celebrations. Yeah, people screaming, others crying, shedding tears of joy because they had been home for quite a long time. So it was like a dream to them that finally they had been picked.
Exactly.
Yes. And as a union, we said kudos to government. I think this is unprecedented. This has not happened in the history of this country, that such a number of teachers, public service employees, could be employed in a single year. And that, of course, they are going to rural areas where we are hard hit in terms of teacher pupil ratio. So with this, we know even a child in that rural part of this country is going to have access to quality education.
Interesting. Now, quite elaborate, and now we understand that once the process was done, the names announced and everything, while people were also checking their names, some irregularities were also noticed, that some names were appearing more than once, where you'd find that the same name, same NRC appearing on the same list. But what would be your perspective on that, and how should we clean up such anomalies, because they would also create issues, because while someone is crying, someone is being, his name is appearing twice, but how can we resolve those issues?
Yeah, we were expecting the Teaching Service Commission or Ministry of General Education to give their position on the same, and they did about 2 days ago. Teaching Service Commission chairperson explained. We have a number of cases actually. There are some that applied, were picked, but unfortunately we lost them.
Yes.
Yeah, so they are late. They're no longer there. Then we have also cases of, there's a councillor, for example, somewhere who even wrote to say, I have forgone this recruitment because I already am a councillor.
I have a job.
I have a job. And we may have a number of such cases where maybe some were picked by Rural Electrification Authority or by NAPSA or different institutions. I'm giving an example.
Yes.
Yeah, they could have been picked. Then we have duplication now, where one appears more than once.
Yes.
Yeah, so their position is that they are going to clean up this data. They are going to ensure that these are accounted so that they come up with the actual number, and that they are going to be immediately replaced by those that was, the numbers were big, those that applied. So they still have this information in their database. They will guide which way they will go. If, for example, it is found that 1,000 replacements are supposed to be done, they may look at some of the areas, in those areas where one should have been. Okay, this name should have been in Kawambwa. So we need to find one from Kawambwa, because numbers are supposed to be maintained. Okay, this name should have been in Lundazi.
Yes.
Okay, we maintain. Oh, Gwembe. No, we maintain. just like that. So they'll be using names that they have already in their respective districts to have those replacements done.
Interesting.
It's an exciting period for those that were picked, Mr. Mimba. But looking at the number of teachers that applied, over 100,000, it speaks volumes to how many teachers we have in this country. Is this 30,000 worth it?
Yes, so much worth it, and it is so because even if government was to say we are employing 10,000, that was going to be a very substantial number. Now imagine 30,000. 30,000. I think even the governments that have come and gone in their full terms, they have been in government, they have never come to that number. As in the, each government employing in a single year. Was, for example, in most cases, at some point when there was MMD, the maximum number they would employ is 5,000. And at some point we relaxed. We are not employing, that's why we are talking about 100,000, more than 100,000 teachers on the streets. So our request to the UPND government is not to relent on this trajectory they have found themselves on in terms of the recruitment of teachers. Can they continue? So even in the next year's budget, there should be a component to do with the recruitment of more teachers. We know that some of these people have come from the private sector. That's why I think the association was, to some extent, complaining. That,
Yes, I was coming to that.
Oh, I see, I see. They are complaining that they have lost a lot of teachers.
Exactly.
They have migrated to join government. But this is also creating vacancies for those that were not picked by government. They can get in. However, the private sector is supposed to be careful. Careful in that they may simply be used as a springboard. They may be used as a waiting place if their conditions of service are not competitive, if the way they treat teachers is not fair. So they need to up their game. They need to look at what government is doing so that they can do even better to retain the teachers. Because immediately teachers start moving, the client will be disturbed. These children are sensitive. They could have had a Sharon who was motherly and taking care of them so well. Government employees, she goes. Then they bring in somebody else.
Could bring in a Patrick.
It could be a Patrick. In the first place, they're not used to a male figure. They are used to a female figure. She represents a mother.
Exactly.
Then even their morale for learning is dampened. They complain to parents, I don't think I like the teacher we have now. And then parents will start looking around. Which school can I take my children now? So that is how bad it can be for the private sector. That's why they need to see what they can do in order to retain teachers.
But could this be an issue to do with mentality and how we're raised, that we need to just be employed in the public sector? Because not all schools are bad. I think we've got schools that have good salaries, good conditions, but we still have teachers wanting to just be in the public sector.
A very good question. A very good question. And that is the attitude you need to deal with, because it's like when you are employed in the private sector, then you are not yet employed. Exactly. Until you are picked by government. But we know the number of people that are in the private sector and they wouldn't want to join government. They say, no, I'm okay. Why? Because they are well remunerated where they are there. Are you getting it? It should be worthy being there. You know, the private sector is a little bit fragile, in that anything can happen. Remember there was COVID at some point?
Yes.
Government employees continued getting paid, but it was turbulent for the private sector. People would be told to go back home, we can't manage because, children are not coming to school, and all that. So you really need to be prepared to be in the private sector.
It takes a lot.
It takes a lot. It does.
It takes a lot.
Yes.
But anyways,
Yeah. So, I understand that your union is strategically placed in that you focus on both the private and the public sectors.
Yes.
But how can now how can we steer entrepreneurship in the teaching fraternity to ensure that while others can save the government, others should also remain viable in the private sector?
Correct. Entrepreneurship, and as for me, I was looking at the advantages. For example, I will shift a bit and talk about the rural areas where they have sent our teachers. Most of them are going to rural areas.
Yes.
And these are areas that are shunned by our people. No electricity, there isn't decent accommodation, roads are bad. I think I need to go back where I used to have, pizza, Hungry Lion.
Yes.
Okay. Friday, I can go to the nearest drinking place and chill a bit. Life is happening in the city.
the bright lights.
The bright lights of the city. And they're even brighter if you have just arrived.
Exactly.
So, we don't want to be in the village. But to tell the truth, if there are areas that have got opportunities for businesses, for civil servants in this country, are the rural areas. First of all, you are the only person who is the highest paid in that place. No one else, maybe apart from those big farmers. But in terms of employment, you are the only one, because you may be the only civil servant at that level. You will not have directors, PSs there. You will not have them. You are in that rural part of the country. And our advice, as we have been giving, is that let them not shun to get loans. They can get loans. But these loans are supposed to be put to productive use. Let them not get a loan to buy a car, unless they can use that car to make money. Let them not get a loan to go to school, unless whilst at school they can make money. Let them not get that loan to buy a fridge, a stove, a television, unless with those items they can make money. I was giving an example of a teacher who said to Mbara. Mbara, for example, is known for beans, and it's cheaper there. People from Soweto go to buy beans from there. When you have 1,000, you buy beans, you make it 2,000 if you bring it in. So a sharp civil servant will say, oh, okay, with my salary, I think I can get about 100,000 kwacha alone. Can I quickly, because here there's the beans readily available, get that loan. Start buying beans. Out of the 100,000, you will make 200,000. Because you are where people are mining gold. You've been sent there. I know of teachers, Patrick, that have made it in Northwestern Province where there's honey. They simply pack their honey in 5-liter containers. 700, 700, 700. They bring 10 of them, 7,000. Within 3 days, it's done. They prepare again, 10, just like that. Now, you can imagine how much this particular teacher is likely to make even in 3 years with this trend.
Quite a lot of money.
It's because there is a honey there in Mwinilunga, which is not here. The market is here. This person is educated and knows where the market is. As young people, we should not have the mentality of retirement. We should have the mentality of growing what we have and build what we are supposed to build, so that at an opportune time you can even say, I think I've done my job. It's better I continue with what I'm doing than waiting until I turn 65 or 70.
Then you give chance to other
You give
people.
chance to other people. And this is what the people that have been deployed should have at the back of their minds. Let them not have this mentality of town life. When you go to other countries, even just our neighbors here in Botswana, during the festive season, you will not find people in towns. They go back to their lives. They have got cattle, they have got goats, they have sheep. They have houses away from towns. This is the culture we need to cultivate. And our plea to Rural Electrification Authority is to ensure that our rural areas are electrified. Not only for the betterment of the people that government is sending there, but also for the sake of learners. Remember, we had COVID-19 and we were saying, okay, learning can be done from home. But without electricity, how can you manage that? We know we are now doing iced tea in these schools as a subject. Without power, how do we learn? And those are the things we need to be looking at. So we need to be in a hurry to develop our rural areas and also let our people understand that income must be viewed as a capital. Turn it into capital. Because when you turn it into capital, it will be easier for you to buy a car. And it will be from the proceeds. Imagine you have 100,000 you've borrowed, you buy your beans, you make 100,000 more as profit, you have 200,000. If you want to say, okay, let me, out of the 100,000 I've made now, get a 50, buy a TV, buy a fridge, buy a stove. And your eating, your dressing, everything will keep on as it was. Because now you are making more money with what you got from the financial institution. And like simply putting it in some project that is not going to give you money.
Interesting. In case you are just joining us, you are watching the Camnet Breakfast Show, Wednesday edition, governance and policy, everything politics. And in conversation, we have the NUPE's executive president, Mr. Victor Muyumba, and we are talking about the plight of teachers in the country. Now, I also want you to help us understand a story that we played before you came in. Was pertaining to issues, Sharon, of a teacher, those teachers that have been recruited now, maybe put on salaries, scales that are within their qualifications. But we have teachers that have been saving, and when they were employed, they had the lower qualifications, but they upgraded. But they haven't been upgraded to the right salary scale. But what does that do, especially when it comes to issues pertaining to motivation, where you'd find a junior coming and they're getting the right salary and you are still getting the lower salary despite you having upgraded your qualifications?
Patrick, that is a thorny issue in the Ministry of Education, and that's why we've been making demands on government. Government should not behave like a bus conductor.
How does a bus
conductor behave?
A bus conductor can stop anywhere to pick a passenger because the one who hasn't yet been picked is more important than the one who is already on the bus.
Exactly.
Well, when it comes to dropping off, they will say, no, there's no station. We'll drop you where you are supposed to. Are you getting it?
I get it. And that's fitting.
This one has lost relevance. Okay?
Because I've already picked them.
Because I've already picked them. Even when they complain, you just tell them off. You see? But the one that is yet to be picked, the auntie, daddy, you know what I mean? So, the situation is akin to what I'm explaining. The teachers that are there right now are complaining. They are complaining. And it's something that we've been fighting battles about. Governments have come, governments have gone. They are just pretending to be solving problems. So we hope the UPND government is going to do this one thing. And you are saying juniors, to some extent, they're not only juniors. Okay? Some of them are not only former pupils of these people that are in the service, but even children.
Interesting.
So I have trained them, I have groomed them. I have a degree, but the system says, no, wait, we are not yet ready to put you in the degree scale. Meantime, we know you as a diploma holder. And I've taught this boy, girl, who goes later on to some university, gets a degree. The degree that I have comes to the very school where I am. I'm in salary scale G. This former pupil now is in I. And even when people come, they say, those in scale I stand up. We say, those that have degrees. My former pupil stands up. Mm-hmm. I'm seated because I will simply look like one who is claiming.
Yes.
What is on the payslip is what they want. I'm in G. Okay? Amongst you, who can be head of department? Because you are the ones that are in I. Mm-hmm. We can only have one who is in I to be promoted as HOD. I'm there. I have toiled for the country. I have provided my services. I have groomed people that are now the human capital of the country. But I remain unappreciated. In some cases, I'm about to retire. Mm-hmm. This is a vexatious issue, Patrick, and some of us, as a union, have put our foot down and said, for 2023 negotiations, if money will not be enough to do two things, have salaries increased, and also bring to an end what I'm talking about, mm-hmm. then can we use that money, first of all, to bring to an end what I'm talking about, even if it's not to have a salary increase, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. so that we can have equity.
Yes.
We can't continue on the trajectory where we are. We can't. These people are bleeding inside. Even when they are reporting for work, that motivation is not there. Mm-hmm. Their morale has been dampened. Why should a girl or a boy I have seen move mm-hmm. be higher than I am?
And not that you don't have the qualification.
Not because I don't have the
qualification.
But because the employer has simply paid a blind eye to my plea. So this is what we are going to ensure. A number of issues have contributed to this. Mm-hmm. One of them is that our schools have remained upgraded. They haven't been upgraded for a long time. What I mean here is, for example, Kamara Secondary School was built a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And at that time, it was given the establishment to say, okay, Kamara Secondary School must have 7 degree holders and also maybe so many diploma holders. In total, there should be 30 teachers. And this establishment has not been updated. But when you go to Kamara Secondary School now, you find that you need about 40 degree holders instead of 7. You need maybe about 80 diploma holders. So when you say the other 33 degree holders mm-hmm. that are there should be upgraded, they'll tell them the establishment is only for about 7 degree holders, and these have already occupied the positions. We don't have room, even when you have degree holders. And we've been working on what we call the structure, the normal structure, mm-hmm. updated structure for the Ministry of Education. That structure has been approved by Cabinet Office and is ready for funding. Mm-hmm. Now, apart from what I have talked about, these schools that haven't been upgraded, we also have a situation where new schools have been built. A new school there, Ndora Technical, Ndora Girls Technical, mm-hmm. Kapiri Girls Technical, no, there's Edgar Lungu, this, no, there's that. A number of them have been built across the country. They are gazetted, but haven't been given establishment. And there are teachers working there. So if I'm sent there as a degree holder, but where I'm coming from, I'm a diploma holder is in the payroll. Mm-hmm. I will still continue getting paid where I'm coming from because at that school, there are no positions. So even the one who is the head is not confirmed and cannot be confirmed. And some of these cases have gone years on end. Some of them have even retired. You made me to act as a head teacher for 7 years. You didn't confirm me. My retirement comes, I still remain in the other scale, thereby affecting my retirement because my package is going to be calculated on my last pay.
Wow.
And these are the issues that I'm saying are thorny in the education sector. And they are the ones we have said should be a priority, even as we negotiate.
Speechless. But anyways, let me just take you back a little before we move forward with this conversation. You talked about teachers in the private sector and wanting to shift to the public sector. One other reason that these people who are in the private sector say being in the private sector is like working for your money. What does that mean? Does it mean when they go to the public sector they will relax? And if at all they will relax, what guarantee do we have that they will still maintain the quality education that is needed for the pupils?
Yeah, interesting to work for your money. Yeah, so it's like government is where people can
relax,
you
know? Yes.
You can take the leave.
You work for
That's
it.
why the standards in the private sector are a little bit higher than government when it comes to competences of children. Maybe because people are working for their money. And this is a signal to government that the administrators you have put in place are not doing anything. They're different from the administrators in the private sector. Both the administrators in the private sector ensure that people report on time, ensure that work is done, ensure that what is done is of quality and everything. That's why they're saying you work for your money. So it's a message to government, and it's true. As government, we need to improve the way we provide the service. We just have to. I can assure you that it is not uncommon in some cases to find, even in the big offices, you go to Deb's office, you find the jacket draped on the chair, the owner of the jacket is not in the office. That's at Deb's office. That's at the PO's office. That's at the director's office. The jacket is there, and there's a long queue. People waiting to see that particular government official. The person comes at 12:30 and says, oh, it's almost lunchtime, people, so I'll see you after lunch. Let me go for lunch. Amongst these people that are waiting are those that are from far. And their prayer was that before lunchtime they could be attended to so they can get
Start
back
heading
to
back.
Yes. Then the person comes back at 15 hours after lunch.
Attends to 2 people.
Attends to 2 people. Others, no, tomorrow. In fact, I've been called. There's a meeting, so see me tomorrow. That attitude, and not until we deal with it, we'll continue going around circles in terms of development. Time management is very poor. And this is a national disaster. This is a national disaster. You can't manage anything if you can't manage time. And that's the truth. You can't manage human resource. You can't manage financial resource if you can't manage time. It's also a resource. And all these resources depend on it. So, we hope those that were in the private sector and were working for their money will also realize that even government is an employer whose money must be worked for. So that the same quality education, the same dedication should be taken to government. And it's not really about intimidating people that they should be doing what they are supposed to do. It's about motivating them. Motivation is not always through money or things, but simply telling people you are beautiful, you are wonderful, you are hardworking, you are heroes. Everybody will have that enthusiasm, zest to do what they are supposed to do. That's the motivation they need. So we need to overhaul the way we do things, especially in the government institutions. We just have to. Now, the other reason, apart from that, but to me that's a positive one from the private sector. The private sector also needs to improve. But some are running away from unnecessary noise and things that don't make sense. Here's the proprietor of the school. But when you are a proprietor, don't run that school. Don't run it. You can simply be some director. Employ somebody, excuse me. Employ somebody that is going to be in charge of the school. You remove yourself from the equation. But now, in some private schools, the owner comes with some daughter who is maybe in grade 11, and she straight goes to sit on the chair of the head teacher, and they ask one of the teachers to bring her some water to drink, and walks around supervising teachers. Imwe, nanga even vitanyama. Hey, Imwe, the daughter. Then this teacher simply says,
Nivutika ine.
And they can't tell her off, was it?
They'll be fired, exactly.
If anything, they have to make friends with her so that they can keep the job.
Force the friendship.
Yes. Even calling her madam, madam, madam. Are you getting it?
Yes, we are.
That is unprofessional and that is bad. Who would want to be in such an environment?
No one.
No one. So when they hear government is employing, oh, let me run for my
They will
life.
send applications to all the 10 provinces. Hoping to be picked in one of them.
Correct. Correct. They will cast their net wide to ensure that they run away
They are
from
based
it.
in Lusaka, but they will send you to Kabompo. They won't mind.
Even that's what was happening. You know, and that's what we're saying. You know, the recruitment was decentralized. So if one says, I'm a Kabompo resident, but he's just faking, is from Lusaka. Yeah, so
They'll face it. They'll face it.
Once you are a Kabompo resident, be there. Yes, not run away.
Yeah, you'll be made the Kabompo resident even if you don't know the
forced to speak the language. Yeah.
I would say it's like this situation where one says, if I tell you I'm in Livingston, then we meet in Kamara. Then it means you're also in Livingston.
Yes,
Yeah.
you are in Livingston. Don't argue.
Correct.
I'm in Livingston.
Yes.
interesting conversation. Yeah, but before we let you go, we just want you to get your winding remarks, basically pertaining to the teacher recruitment. Quite a number of issues you have highlighted surrounding the plight of teachers. We know there are a number of numerous issues. We cannot exhaust them in one interview, and we'll continue to engage you so that we continue to handle these issues because they border on national matters, and especially education is a key to the success of this country in terms of facilitating development.
Yes, what was heartwarming again was that the process included law enforcement agencies. Yeah, so issues of bribery, issues of nepotism, tribalism, regionalism. At least we didn't see, files from UPND Secretariat being pushed into these districts so they could be considered. The ground was fair, and even those that were left out, they are satisfied that everything was fairly done. All they can do is look forward to the next recruitment. And we hope and pray that this will be how recruitments will be done in the country, and that we improve. If there are any other issues that might not have been done properly, we improve on them, so that someday, even as we relate here, it should not be about what you have and what you don't have, but the capacity, the qualifications. It's not about your name or my name, but it's about that we are Zambians. And that is the attitude, that's the environment we need to have as Zambians, to be working together, moving together. So this, we hope, even, is it after tomorrow that the health names will be coming out, something like that.
Yes.
Yes. We hope there too was the situation. Because at the end of the day, I think there's nothing that is more wicked than being inhuman. All you can do to human beings is treat them fairly. And that's what God needs and wants. So we pray this will be the way forward.
Interesting.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mimba, for gracing our screens. As Patrick had mentioned, we will continue to invite you. Great conversation we've had. Your passion for education is unmatched.
Thank you so much. Welcome, and I'm grateful, Patrick, Sharon. It was a wonderful discussion.
All right, let's take a break. When we return, we continue with the breakfast show.
The Agriculture and Commercial Show is back, bigger and better under the theme Innovation Through Technology. And as Camnet TV, we are here to transform your business through our technology. Advertise with us on discounted rates during the month of July and during the Agriculture and Commercial Show. Special price package for live stunt interviews, on-screen product placement during the coverage of the show. For more details, call the following numbers. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Hello, I'm Deborah Lukalu, all the way from South Africa. You are watching Camnet channel, not just another channel. God bless you. Stay tuned.
All right, you are watching the Camnet Breakfast. My name is Sharon Kalimbola, and we are in the dying minutes, and that is the time that Patrick would use his common phrase to say, excuse the screens. I don't even understand where he got it from, but obviously he coined it.
Exactly.
The same way we use these quotes for the Aristotles of that world, the Grahams of that world, who actually quote Patrick Soko saying, we excuse the screens.
Until next time, when we come back with another interesting episode of the Camnet Breakfast, a governance and policy edition, Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow. Just make sure that you find time. We'll also make sure that we bring the right guests so that we can get interacting on various national issues.
Good morning.